Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Celia. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday evening self-healing class. If you're new, I want to welcome you. Special welcome to anyone who's new. We're losing track of the people who are coming in. Last week, there were 155 new people, and now as many as 600 people are watching us weekly on these various broadcasts that we do live on Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And then there's always going to be a few hundred more that are interacting with us on the social platforms. So I'm quite amazed. We started going virtual and hybrid before COVID because we knew that the spiritual centers throughout the country were in trouble, financially, and we caught wind of the idea in a growth group that we were involved in that the future would be a hybrid community. So we're happy that all that hard work that we started 4 or 5 years ago has come together, so we can now reach out to people all over the country and in fact all over the world. This Louise Hay class, this self-healing class, is for me it's nothing new in a way, because I've been teaching or facilitating her material since her book came out. I happened to walk into a Unity Center, and because there was a marquee on the church's signage which said, "You can heal your life." And my God, I don't want to tell you how many years ago that was, but it was in the 80s. And I've been involved in a Louise Hay class every week since, and I've been able to present this material in every kind of venue, from churches to schools to treatment centers to hospitals. And her message is just as valid, just as important today as it ever was. Louise Hay's book has gone down as being one of the most popular books of the last century in terms of self-help books. And as you know, she later, first of all, she started here at our own center in New York. So we have a little bit of boasting rights. Louise Hay got her education here, the same place, teaching the same kind of classes that we have here. And she said it's all very simple. There's that boomerang, what you put out comes back to you. And she noticed me many years ago, and she started to support some of the work I was doing. And lo and behold, all these years later, I'm here in the New York church where she got her start. And to my amazement, there's as much interest in the work that she was doing. There's as much interest now as there was then. Perhaps there's even more. So the Thursday night class gathering is an opportunity for us to share some of the best the best ideas that she had. Louise studied, by the way, Ernest Holmes, and there's a whole group of people that Ernest Holmes studied, and I'm sure she studied most of them as well because they're part of the curriculum. But I love Louise because she said it's all very simple. Some of our curriculums can seem complicated, and if you try to read Ralph Waldo Emerson or some of the others, you could say, oh my God, I don't know. You don't necessarily have to read all those books, though they can be really, really wonderful if you want to get at what Louise was teaching. So we're thrilled you're here. If you're on the Zoom call, it's always the better way to go, because we have a time afterwards where some of you share your thoughts, and I'm finding that the audience, likes listening to you, your comments as much as they like hearing the lessons. So you don't have to share, but you can share, and there's usually a time for probably 15 minutes or so where people can share. Jimmy mentioned we're having an annual membership drive. We do that every year because we have something like 4,000 or 5,000 people, and we have to have a current membership. So each year we put out the membership drive. No one is required to donate anything to be a member. There's a suggested love offering of $50, but there's also a box where you can request a scholarship. So if you're interested in supporting the center, please. Raymond Charles Barker, our founder, said, give your happy money. In other words, whatever you can afford to do, do. And if you can't, if it's not a good time for you, then, don't worry about it. Just come and listen, and hopefully there'll be something here that will be a benefit to you, that can inspire you in some way. We believe in prosperity, and as you start to change your thinking, you'll open up yourself to, improved health, greater prosperity, better relationships, and everything else. So let's start with the lesson. I'm going from a workshop that she did, which would have probably been a 2 or 3 hour presentation. So we're not going to do all of that. But I'm going to get through the highlights for you. We can share some of these thoughts. This is another presentation. We recently got through one a couple weeks ago. If you're new on this call, I'm always reminded to say something that Louise said often. Usually people show up in these types of gatherings at the right time, at the right place. So if you found yourself here wondering how I got here, you might realize that you had a divine appointment of sorts. If all of this information sounds new to you, all I would suggest is let it wash over you. Consider it. You don't have to agree with everything we teach. I mean, you are the only thinker in your own mind. So if there's something that we teach or something we suggest, take what you can use of it. We're not asking you to accept everything we say. We teach you here that you are the only thinker in your mind. What we do here, our whole purpose is to teach you that, there's something amazing about you. Ernest Holmes would say there's power for good in the universe, and that power is in you. So I'm going to say to you myself, there's power in you. There's power in the universe greater than you are, and it's in you, and you can learn how to use it. And Louise Hay would be very much a person to start reading and listening to, because she will be talking to you about, in just about everything she wrote or any of the audio, that you have this power, and what you give out comes back to you. So we will repeat that often. We will say things to you like how great you are. And that is not necessarily a message most of us got as kids, of how great we are, how wonderful we are. Oftentimes we got other kind of messages, which I'll probably get into a little bit tonight. So the first thing Louise said in that particular lecture workshop was, maybe it's time for us to start to consider some of the messages that we received as kids, and maybe we want to start listening to thinking about some positive messaging. Maybe it's time for us to consider that we are centers of love and light, that we're connected with Source, we're connected with this divine source, this power, we always have been, and that we're never alone. And if you come in and you tune in on Thursdays and Sundays in particular, we're going to keep on reminding you that you have this connection. Within you is something that's really amazing. This power that I have within me is in everybody in this room and in everyone on that call. It's nothing special about what I have, because what I have is available to everybody. Louise Hay was our most famous student, bar none, at the First Center here in New York. We've had great teachers here, but she undoubtedly was the most famous. In our workshops, in her workshops and in our workshops, she did a lot of work on the idea of releasing. And you'll hear me say, and none of this is anything that I've ever created. I'm just repeating the things that have been taught to me by Louise and a few other people. Louise would ask us to release the pattern of thought that you have, that I have within me, the habitual thought that we cling to that somehow doesn't make any sense anymore. You might think of patterns you've had when you were younger that would suggest you're not attractive enough, or you're not smart enough, or any of those things. If you find yourself doubting yourself or being critical of yourself, these would be the kind of patterns that you would want to release. Sometimes it takes some work to get rid of them. I fondly remember, I was thinking about this lesson this week and this afternoon. When I was a young teenager, I was working at a golf course, which was directly across the street from my parents' house. And so I was working on the golf course. And well, I was mowing lawns, and I was doing all kinds of things at that golf course. But every week, we were bringing out these enormous machines where we were mowing down the fairways, which were filled with dandelions. And if you ever know anything about a dandelion, you mow them down, but very quickly they return. And I think of these weeds all these years later, I think of them almost like the thought patterns that we have. It's one thing to cut them down. It's one thing to refute a negative thought, but that doesn't make it go away. See, the thing about our negative thinking, just like that weed, is it runs deep. It's deep within us, and it's been there for a very long time. Our goal here with our negative thinking and our thought patterns, much like the weeds that I used to combat, is we want to find a way to neutralize the pattern. We want to neutralize the old tape, the old pattern, the thing that's dug in deep, this thing that's been with us for 10, 20, 30 years. The thing that we learned maybe from our parents, we don't even know where we learned it. But we have almost a form of prejudice about different things, different ideas. You know, we don't listen to people because we have this idea that's almost set in stone. So one of our goals every Thursday, every Sunday, is to try to ask people to be here now. You know, that comes from Ram Dass. The idea is, got to be here now. Be here now. What does that mean? How can I be here now without any of that, what we call fondly BS, you know, standing for belief system? How can I be here now without all that junk, you know, that prejudice? You know, how can I be in a new moment with people when I've got years of this interaction with them where I think they're bad, or they're scoundrels, or they're my opponent, or they're my oppressor? How am I able to be here now and drop all those stories? So as you get involved in this teaching and we start to do the work, you know, Louise will teach you, and we will teach you about affirmative prayer. And we'll teach you how to really get at the core of all this stuff that's buried deep within you. These beliefs, it's not enough just to say, okay, I'm whole and I'm healthy. I mean, that's great. But the thing is, if what's underneath is you don't believe you're healthy, you don't believe you're whole, you don't believe you're attractive, you don't believe you're good. So then it's like the weed. You've chopped off the head, but you've got buried underneath everything. It's just going to come forth again and again and again. So that's one of the best arguments for learning how to do affirmative prayer. Affirmative prayer is going to be something a little bit different. We work with affirmations, which are wonderful. We put them on sticky notes, we put them on magnets, and we say them to ourselves throughout the day, and we build up our consciousness where we really start to feel that we're supplied and supported, we're whole and complete, we're healthy and we're good. And that's a wonderful beginning. But the thing is, if underneath all of that, we have a very strong belief that we're not adequate, or we're not good, or that life is working against us, or we think it's too late for us, then what's going to be showing up in your life really is a reflection of what you truly, deeply believe. So we got to do more than affirmations, though I swear to God, affirmations are a great place to start. I've been using them for 40 years. It helps you build up consciousness. And the thing is, when you're doing the affirmations or you're doing affirmative prayer, anything unlike that positive statement has a tendency to come right into your mind. And one day I'm going to teach you all and if you don't know, how to do affirmative prayer. Because when you're making those positive statements in mind, what's going to come up is the thought that, in other words, if I'm stating I'm whole and I'm complete and I'm healthy and I'm good and I'm wonderful, and that's my affirmation, anything unlike what I just said is going to come into my awareness. And when that happens, I say to students, you have struck gold, because what you're really finding out is what you really truly believe at the depths of your being. So we want to look to Ernest Holmes, who wrote the Science of Mind textbook, and he has two definitions in the glossary. I don't have them in front of me right now, but I can tell you essentially what he's saying. He'll say spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer is the time, the art, the method of ridding that negative thought, that prejudice, that old idea, ridding it from your consciousness and replacing it so you can perceive the omnipresence. You can perceive in its place the good and the God. So it's the time. You know, it may take you a week to do a treatment or affirmative prayer where you actually rid that thought deeply and profoundly from your being. You know, the time, the art. You don't have to follow our formula. It isn't our formula. It's the time, the art, the method. It's whatever you need to do to totally neutralize that negative thought, because that negative thought is creating your life. Every week we talk about paying attention to your conversation. Every Thursday night I ask the question, what's it been like being you this week? And I say it with a sense of fun, but I also say it because I want people to reflect. Whatever it is that you're thinking all day long and all week long, and only you know, because I can dress up and sound good and sound positive, but what lives underneath, if I have these seething talks or thoughts that are full of negativity, my God Almighty, that's the stuff that's going to play out in my life. We are in the business here of learning how to cancel that type of thinking. Cancel, cancel. I had a very elderly British woman, Joyce, who used to say, cancel, cancel. I can't imitate her anymore. But, you know, or she would say, next, next. So all day long she'd be working on canceling the negative thoughts and saying next. She knew darn well that her responsibility to herself was to get a handle on her internal dialogue. The internal dialogue, the tendency of your thinking, is what's playing out like a movie. So when I ask that question, what's it like being you? I'm asking you, what has your thinking been like this week? And I'm never really wanting you to tell me because it's none of my business. But I'm asking you really the question, you know, what's it been like being you? Because if you're full of worry and you're full of fear and you're full of doubt and you're worried about inflation, you're worrying about your 401k, you're worrying about your relationship, you're worrying about everything, then you're full of worry. And what do you suppose happens when you're full of worry? All these worst case scenarios that are running around your head, you're drawing them right to you if you're full of worry. So when you get involved in a teaching like this, and you listen to Louise Hay, and when she says all is well, breathe that into your being and say to yourself, all is well. When we tell you you're in the perfect place at the perfect time all the time, breathe that into your being and repeat it to yourself. I'm in the perfect place, the perfect time, and all of the time. See, these are truths. We'll say truths of the universe, truths of God. But the thing is, and if you can embrace them and understand that you live and you move and you have your being in this divine stuff. And furthermore, not only do you move in it, you live in it, you have your being in it, it responds to you. It's all it ever does. And it accepts you at your own estimation of yourself. So that's the way it works. That's the law of attraction in a nutshell. You know, you have creative power, you are one with this power, and life is responding to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. To the extent you spend time on the negatives, to the extent you turn on the news and listen to everything that's wrong in the world, to the extent you listen to people who belittle you and berate you, to the extent you believe any of that stuff, it's coming into your consciousness, you're accepting it on some level as being true or partially true, and then it's reflected in your world. Louise said, "You are the only thinker in your world." Now you might say, but my God, I hear my mother, I hear my father, there's this committee of people in my world. And yeah, I get it. That's the way it is for a lot of people. But the thing is, if you want to step up and step out of the past and what you've been creating for the past 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, then you kind of got to get to the point where you'll be like Jesus, and you're going to say to yourself, I need to be about my Father's business. Jesus was challenged by his own mother to come do this, come do that. I can't remember the circumstances, but the point was, he came to a point in his spiritual evolution where he realized, I need to think for myself. I need to step out of all of this, and I need to be about Spirit's business. Deep within the center of your being, Louise Hay said, is an infinite well of love, yearning to express itself, to go forward. And this well, this intelligence that you have within you is awesome. Ernest Holmes says there's power for good in the universe greater than you, of which you are definitely a part, and you can use this power. So you have power to use. You have power to transform. You have power to ascend. You have the power to be healthy. You have power to be successful. You have everything you need. You are standing on holy ground. You have the power. You have the power to use. You have the power to change your life. You have the power to heal your life. You are a being that's completely filled with power. But like Christ, you're going to deny that power 3 times before the day's over, because it's easier for you to fit in and go with the crowd. It's a big price you pay, because you came here as an individualization of God life. You are 1 in a billion. In other words, there's never been anybody ever like you, and there never will be. You came here into a place where you're here to learn, and where you're here to grow, and you're here to expand, and you're here to love, and you're here to receive love, and you're here to express yourself as joy. You're here to allow yourself to tap into the infinite wisdom that you possess, so you can create your life in a way like no one has ever made a life before. You are here to express yourself and really be something amazing, because you are something amazing. As you get more involved in our teaching, as you get more involved in the work that we do, we will teach you affirmative prayer. We will teach you affirmative prayer treatment and how to get it really at the core of these issues, so you can rout out those negative beliefs, much like the dandelion, so you can get it the heck out. Because you don't need to have this stuff keep popping up and popping up and popping up. You don't need to just make an affirmation that goes nowhere. You can do the work so you can rid yourself of all of that. You can truly release any and all of this in such a way it doesn't come back. Or if it comes back, it comes back very seldom, and you'll have the tools to get rid of it immediately. Ernest Holmes in the textbook talked about in treatment again. I invite you to go to the textbook and look up the glossary, and look up spiritual mind treatment. And he said it's, again, the time, the art, the method of ridding this stuff from our consciousness. Again, it's not really quite enough to say, I'm whole, I'm complete, I'm healthy, I'm supplied and supported. Though these are very powerful statements, we want to get at the root of it. We want our effort. So affirmations are really important as a starting point. And so I'm not saying don't use them. I use them myself every single day of my life. But the affirmations help me build up my consciousness, positivity, and positive expectancy. Still, as we learn how to do affirmative prayer and we do our affirmative prayer and our spiritual mind treatments, there's going to be things coming up for us to work with. Affirmative prayer has been called the crown jewel of religious science. That was by Reverend Jane Claypool, who was somebody I admired greatly. She said that's the thing that really differentiates us from the rest of the New Thought movement, because we have this prayer process that can move mountains, it can heal anything, But you need to have that conviction within you that when you've done the prayer treatment, that you can actually feel the movement within you, the feeling. So it needs to be backed up within you by a shift in your consciousness. There used to be bumper stickers out there which would say, shift happens. Well, shift can happen if you take the time, the effort to really do the affirmative prayer. And I know it's time for us to teach a class on that, because it just is. Any of these old ideas and patterns which seem to come back to us over and over again can be permanently eradicated and neutralized. So you can realize the past has no power over you. Not only does the past not have any power over you, you'll come to the conclusion that you have the power to accomplish anything that you want to, starting here and starting now. To begin, without any of these old thoughts, these old tapes, here's the thing. I don't expect that anyone's going to eradicate all of this stuff today, but to make a beginning is the thing. Start by acknowledging I have the power. Start by monitoring the internal dialogue that you have with the most important person in the world. And where anything comes up negative, just refute it with all the energy you have. Say next, say no, replace it. Say, I release the need for this, I release the need for this pattern, and replace it with something positive. And then start learning how to do affirmative prayer in earnest. I've studied a lot of these different disciplines in addition to Science of Mind, Landmark Education, the Course in Miracles, and many, many, many other things in my life. All of them are saying something that are very similar. Sometimes I talk about getting rid of the racket. I borrowed that from Landmark Education, or getting rid of the old tapes, getting rid of the BS, which is the belief system. All these goals are similar. We want to identify the negative patterns so we can break free from them. A racket can be thought of as a deeply ingrained habitual way of thinking and behaving that can prevent individuals from achieving happiness and their heart's desires. Everybody here in this call is an individual. More than that, you're a spiritual individual. And more than that, I want you to know you have awesome power available to you. Ernest Holmes says you have a huge bank account downtown with your name on it, with a limitless balance. So it's there for you. The kingdom is there. It's at hand. You have it. You just have to learn how to work with it, how to draw from it, and stop thinking of yourself as a second-class citizen. Stop thinking of yourself as any negative state, because that's just a story you're telling yourself. You have power available to you beyond your wildest dreams. The more you show up to classes like this, you're going to start to be reminded of the power you have, and you're also going to start to listen and consider. You're going to see, oh my God, I've got these patterns and tapes and rackets going on me, and I really want to release them, and so I can step into my glory, my power, and I can live the kind of life I want to live. So we're learning to love ourselves in these classes, and we're learning to become more self-aware. Our weekly gatherings and classes help us clear up many of these things, and then you start to see yourself, and you say, oh my God, why would I say these things? I'm saying these things about myself and other people. And the other thing to know is if you're saying these negative things about yourselves, 90% chance you're going to be extending them to other people too. And you think, my God, why would I do this? You're not doing it because there's anything wrong with you. It's habitual. And so we really want to listen to ourselves. Louise talks about not using the word should. That's a great word to eliminate. Because wherever it's being used, it's usually being used saying not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. She suggests replacing that word with the word could and other similar words. Because you want to find a way to let yourself off the hook. Stop criticizing yourself. Stop criticizing other people. We got a racket going on. We have old ideas, old beliefs going on, old tapes. We have a lot of unresolved issues and conflicting opinions, personal prejudices going on. So, maybe we got it from our great-great-grandparents, aunts, uncles. It's just a lot of stuff circulating within. Sometimes we call it our belief system. We joke about it. For those of you in recovery and you're practicing spiritual programs, you might look at this subject, meaning your belief system or your racket or your old tapes. It goes round and round and round, and you've got to find a way to stop it. I mean, you don't have to. You can keep on doing what you're doing. But why would you? When you realize you have the power to create a glorious life, a life of prosperity and health, and great relations, why the heck would you not want to have that? So to change it, you have the power to change it. I've got a list of things that I wanted to read before I wrap this up. If you have old tapes going on, I'll give you a list of old tapes right now. I'd suggest you're not good enough or you don't measure up in some way. You want to challenge them. You want to challenge them as soon as you can. Here's a small list. And then if you're in any way, shape, or form thinking to yourself you're not adequate or not good enough, or if any way you're saying you're not able to do this or do that, or that you're a failure, or nobody likes you, you're telling yourself, okay, this is easy because I'm getting up there in age. You tell yourself, I'm too old, or I'm not, if you do any of that stuff, I'm too fat, I'm too thin. I'm not good enough, I don't deserve to be happy. Or you say to yourself, I always screw up, I'm not smart enough, I'll never be successful. Or if you think you're a bad person, or you're a burden to other people, you don't belong in this place, I'm not smart enough, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm a fraud, I'm an imposter, I'm too old to be attractive. It's a long list. My hair, my skate, my face, my body is ugly. I'm not attractive as other people. I don't have a sense of style. I'm not sexy enough. I'm not lovable. I'm not important. I'm not attractive. I don't have what it takes. I'm never going to be happy. See, this could go on and on and on. The thing is, if you relate to any of these statements, you're in the right class. Because this is your internal conversation that you have. And you basically unselect yourself. You basically saying, I'm not okay. And the whole purpose of this class is for you to learn to love, accept, and approve of yourself exactly as you are. And begin to tell yourself how wonderful you are. And to stop the process of criticizing yourself. Because as soon as you stop criticizing yourself, you're going to find that you're going to be stopping criticizing other people. Your brothers, your sisters, everybody in this world are spiritual beings, and you are one with every last one of them. So we want to release the need to be critical. We want to find ways to love. We want to find ways to love ourselves and love others. We're not here to be fault finders. We're here to love ourselves, approve of ourselves, give ourselves a break, give other people a break, and just start anew, starting here, starting now. Yesterday ended last night, and you have the power to transform your life by thinking in new ways. I will promise you we'll teach you more in-depth spiritual mind work, affirmative prayer. But until we do, keep up with your affirmations, keep up with the idea of releasing these patterns whenever they come into your consciousness. And wherever you tell yourself you're not good enough, replace it and tell yourself, I'm whole and I'm complete and I'm loving and lovable. We want to put all that other type of thinking, away and put all this positive thinking into the atmosphere and create a bubble of light and positive expectancy around us. And we want to truly know we're supplied and supported.